Hello, I'm a gust of wind. This is Into the Toad. Let us take a moment to reflect. Let us take a moment of reflection. We automatically think of, that means to think about stuff. That's how I would take that word normally. A moment of reflection is a moment to think or consider. But that's not what it is. Reflect is to bend. Like flexion and flexibility. To reflect is to bend back. Reflection is to bend back light. Reflection is, I think, the right term for contemplation and thought and thinking and contemplation. But these words are constantly changing depending on what's going on in society. If someone's a thoughtful person, that means they're considerate. Doesn't mean they sit around and think a lot. What does it mean to think? There's two different types. There's thoughts rolling through your head, a lot of words, maybe some emotions, and they go too fast, and that's anxiety, or they're based in fear, that's anxiety, or you're trying to make a decision, so you're considering all of the, at least you think you're considering all of the variables. And reflection, contemplation, is, I think, more along the lines of what's natural to humans and I think to all living creatures. And if there's nothing to do, you're not eating, sleeping, mating, shivering, sweltering, or fighting, or dying, suffering, then you're reflecting. You're bending back the light of what is. It's the big difference between thinking and reflecting. Thinking is you coming up with something, you getting in the way of something. You making a decision on what is good and what is bad. Reflection is the opposite of that. Like the reflection of a mirror. The mirror is the mind. Used correctly. It doesn't need to change what's in front of it. You don't need to change the world around you. And we're told that from our earliest days that we must do that, but that's not going to happen. And it's not helpful. You have to see the world first. And a mind that just bends the light back and reflects what's in front of it is actually seeing it. This whole happening in front of you right now doesn't need your involvement. There's no urgency here. You're not tasked with some secret mission that you have to figure out. You're here, and that's it. It's like everything else. It's just here. It's here. What is it? Well, you can't tell if you can't see it. And if you're thinking, you can't see it. You're not looking at it. You're not seeing it. I think a mind in reflection is a mind in repose. It's a mind at rest because it's not needed at this moment. What is rest? What is not doing anything? I love not doing anything. And I think most of my life was spent desperately trying to prove that I wasn't doing nothing. I'm doing something. Somebody calls you out of the blue. You have to answer. What are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing something. You have to be doing something. You can't say nothing. I mean, you can, but they're going to roll their eyes and say, oh, that guy, he's lazy. He's doing nothing again. But what if you had 10 minutes a day to do nothing? What does that mean? How would you do that? The journey into the toad is all about uncovering what that 10 minutes is. Because that's what you are. If you let it happen. It's the simplest thing in the world, but today, in our society, it's the hardest thing in the world, too. How do you do nothing? Well, that means you're not talking to anyone else. You're not listening to anyone else. You don't have any electronic devices to distract your focus. None. No speakers, no phones, no computers, no lights. Nothing. Get down to the bare bones of what this is. Means you're not interfering with it. And if you can enter a state of reflection, then you're on the path to realizing what it is. And that path leads to everything. Because you can't know what you are until you know where you are. And if you're able to do nothing and allow this world to happen, preferably the natural world, you're not going to get much out of watching midtown traffic. Nature has its own rhythm. And if you're in the civilized world, that's man's rhythm. It's artificial. It's urgent. It's desperately urgent. Always. Always. Unless it's pretending to not be urgent, which is an urgency of its own with its own price tag. Nature moves at the speed of the seasons, at the speed of light, and at the speed of death, of fighting for your life. You can go from a moment of reflection to fighting for your life. That's probably the best way to enter that fight, is from reflection. Most of your capabilities are heightened and improved when you enter them from a state of reflection, from doing nothing. There's an old analogy about the general defending from an attack. In an open field, there's no protection, there's nowhere to go, there's no more resources. There is an attack coming, you don't know from which direction, so you can't just tell everybody, oh, block the east. You don't know, but you know it's coming. The only move for that general is to enter a state of reflection, is to enter a state where all of his senses and sensors and abilities are dialed up and ready to go, which means you're not using any of them. can't be sitting there listening to music and be ready. You can't be watching the show. You can't be having a conversation. You can't be smoking marijuana. You can't be doing anything. It can't be more simple. Do nothing. One of the first barriers to this is our word lazy, which comes out a little bit like the word sleazy. It's in the same category for most people who hear it. It's a bad word. It's a bad way to be. It's despicable. It's disrespectful to all these people who have to work so hard around you. But lazy doesn't mean that you're not doing what you have to do. In my world, it means you're doing nothing. This is also selfish. Lazy and selfish are your salvation from this chaos of the world around us. You're not good to anybody else unless you're optimized. Be as strong as you are. And if you have all these different health problems and neurological disorders and you can't sleep at night and there's just this whole thing that most of us are in, or at least aware of, then you're not doing a service to the people who are relying on you, including yourself. To start doing nothing and start having your batteries charged for you. Start getting stronger without moving. It's the state of reflection is where we are when we come out of the toad medicine. I don't think there's any other way, any other place to be. I think that's relatively universal, if there is such a thing for people going into whatever this medicine is. I don't know what it is. I just know what it does to me. And even that, I don't really know. I can tick off the after effects and improvements in my life, things I like, but I don't understand it. I just know coming out of it is as good as a human being can feel. Feelings are paramount. Feelings, again, like the selfishness and the laziness, they sound insignificant. But everything emanates from your feelings. Everything that you do, everything that's done to you, the feelings are the first layer. And it's easy to forget that, or to not understand that, just to have no concept of it, because I didn't. And then I came out of the medicine the first time, and everything stopped. The whole world slowed down so much. I felt like I was in a dream. I was no longer rushed by myself. And I could just watch this whole parade play out from a vantage point of not only being serene, but being awash in pleasure and joy. It's not just removing the chaos and the noise. It's this natural phenomenon of a flood of real pleasure that comes from doing this. If you see people who park themselves on a mountaintop and sit in the lotus position and just never leave it, they're not hardcore grinding. In their mind, just like, I'm going to do this. It's nothing like that. It's They don't want the pleasure interrupted. Everything disturbs it. It's so pure and so delicate. As soon as the thoughts start to come, it'll fade away. And you can't stop the thoughts. But you can put them in their place. And that disturbs the pleasure less when, there's thoughts happening, but they're not really the focus of my intention. They're just there, like the breeze that I can feel on my skin. It's not disturbing me. I'm aware of it, but it's not disturbing me. Your thoughts can live there. I think that's where the thoughts should be, and I think that we've gotten so deep into language that the thoughts have a more serious grip. There's so much power in the words, and it's easy for them to take over. I don't know. I like to think about it's just all the societies that happened before us. How many were there? How many humans have there been? What were they doing? We know they had to be strong. They didn't have these creature comforts and mechanical devices to let them get soft and obese. I think the average human, since the beginning of time, has been a physical specimen. Man, woman, and child. And that physical well-being does lend itself to this pleasure being able to flow. It helps. You can't be physically unhealthy and tap into. There's a gradient there. I am not a physical specimen, but I'm aware of what I'm spending my pleasure on. Had two glasses of wine last night. My pleasure meter's lower today. I know I'm paying for that. I know that's going to happen. I can have one sip of alcohol and feel it the next day. It's a very sensitive gauge, and I'm aiming for when I come out of the toad, but that requires an effort to do nothing. It's a contradiction. There's a lot of them. But the psychic energy that you drum up to not do anything, to not fall into any of these ruts that you've dug for decades, requires vigilance. And sometimes I'm tired. So I let myself fall into these ruts. I know the ruts. I know the caverns they can lead to. I've been in them. And I don't go back into them. I do let myself slip into the ruts occasionally out of laziness, even though I know that this state of euphoria is right here. I know how to get there. It's just like going into the medicine. It's like all I have to do is go take it, and boom, I'm in it. And sometimes I'm in it for months. But I could today. I could just hop on a plane and go see Eric. Today, he's there. I know where he is. This is all he does. It would be good for me, but it's not that easy to take the leap, even when you know the consequences. If I told you, look, there's a 50-story building. If you jump off, you're going to have pleasure for the rest of your life, and everything's going to work out. And you know that to be true. You still won't want to jump off that building. You're like, well, this is too scary. That's the medicine. It's the unknown, and you're going to it's not going to be easy. No matter. Sometimes it's usually awe-inspiring. The word awesome was created for what it is, and it's been overused, watered down. But the glimpse into the reality of what life actually is, what you actually are, you'll cry the beauty of life itself. It's nothing like looking out a window and seeing a pretty sunset. It's nothing. You are the sunset. There's no other intensity anymore for me. That's it. This, and then there's a bunch of other stuff that can happen. That's the level, the sensation of being in it. And it wrings you out. It cracks you open. So much so that when it's finished and it releases you, you are in a reflective state. You're in a state of reflection. There are no thoughts. There's no urgency. There's no nothing. It's just you, and you might hear your own breathing. And you'll feel the decompression in the exhale in every cell of your body. It's always there, but you can't access it as well as when you're in this state. And that state I think, would be recognizable by every human being that's ever lived. More so in the past than in today's world. But it is the ideal state. It is when we're left alone. When we do nothing. This is what we are. It's so magical. Boredom is impossible. William Burroughs said that heroin was the cure for boredom. And I was inspired by that as a young man. And I chased it down to find out. I was always bored when I was little. And there's some truth to it. He didn't mention what it actually is. Yes, that's true. First few times. You're at ease. You're at peace. Maybe for the first time in your life. But it's aggressively digging a rut that will be there for the rest of your life. And that rut can turn into a chasm, just like that. But the idea that there's a state of consciousness where there is no chance for boredom is what this is all about. For me, that's what the medicine, it showed me a lot. It's become the focal point of my life. It saved my life, I think. But that state of reflection is really what I think about. I worry about getting there. There's wars that happen to get there. The medicine is a war against yourself. And you lose every time. And you're rewarded every time with this reflective state, which just 1 minute of it can guide you for the rest of your life to see that anything that pulls me out of that ability is a distraction, but also the more aggressively things pull me out of that. There are certain people that when you're in their company, you will just feel this, that I'm never going to be able to get to this state. Being around this energy, this person's energy is so disruptive to where I want to be. Doesn't matter who they are. It matters what they are. Who we are is a fabrication. It changes 100 times a day. And whatever somebody tells you who they are, that's all a lie. That's not who they are. And if somebody tells you, oh, that's who he is, that's an even bigger lie. That's one step removed from the biggest lie. Who we are is not interesting. What we are is everything. And what we are is what all these humans have been. I mean, for how long? Find footprints in the sand, fossilized, some kind of stone from 4 million years ago. Human footprint. Human-ish. Oh, some early version of us. There's some science, but it's mostly wonder. Who were these people? What were they doing? What did they know? What do they know that we don't know? We already know what we know that they don't know. That's painfully obvious to just look around what we've done to this world. We hang our hat on that like it's this huge victory. We've conquered nature. This notion of conquering a mountain, it's so ridiculous. It's so Talk about not knowing what you are on two fronts. One, you are nature. And two, this force that we're a part of, it doesn't get conquered. Certainly not by you. I mean, just lock you outside your house for 10 minutes in January and you're conquer nature then. I mean, it's so simple to prove how weak we are. But we don't get it. We don't want to see it. A lot of the things that we don't want to see conceal these treasures. That state of reflection, if you let it, will start to show you things. And to see, it will show you what you are. And to start to see that, it can be a terrifying, it certainly was for me, just the most uncomfortable realizations. I couldn't accept it. Could not accept how beautiful and perfect everything was, including myself. There was a lot of resistance to that. So much rage. So much. I can remember coming out of the medicine one time and Eric just shaking his head gently, walking around me saying, so much anger. He wasn't really talking to me. This is the man who sees people recognize themselves every day. This process of becoming unhappy to blissfully happy and successful and strong, he sees it all the time. It's not a magical thing that someone needs to put in a pill and sell for $1 billion. The medicine does it all the time. That's what it does. That's where it starts. That's the beginning. It's the first step. We think we're so locked into things. We're not locked into anything. There is nothing you cannot overcome and get rid of when you tap into what you are. And as you sit there in a state of reflection, just beholding what this place is, the outside and the inside, as Alan Watts says, will come together. This is another difficult sensation. It's not a mental concept. You will become one with everything. There is no, you think that you end at your skin. You just think that. You've been told that, you assume that. It's not true. The skin isn't a barrier. The skin is absorbing things. It's expelling things. It's a permeable membrane. It's obvious that some animals breathe through their skin. Some toads. There is nothing else. There's nothing that's not alive, and there's nothing that's not part of this. You can't see it. The blackness of space at night between those shining stars, that's not nothing. That's it. It's this. It's all this. All of it. The rainbows, the orgasms, the laughter, and the cancer. It's all this. And if you sit there, bending back the light, acknowledging what's happening, not interfering in any way, your mind and your action, it's not getting involved. The less you let yourself get involved, the more you'll see you are already involved. You are actually what's happening. But if you go around distracting yourself and saying, I have to do this and I have to do that, and you become separate from it. We live our entire lives separate from this force. And this force is a healing force. When we look at what these animals do around us, the weight an ant can carry, the way an orca can leap 20 feet out of the water, how much force is required to swim up and break the surface of the water? Go try it yourself and get back to me. Now I'll be a 12,000-pound animal doing it. I mean, what are we talking about here? Where is this energy coming from? The vibrance of the colors in fall, the songs of the birds, the smells in the forest. This is there's no words for it because it's all that there is. There isn't anything else. And this is what you get to touch. This is what you get to become. By doing nothing. By being selfish. You just let your system breathe in and out. Here comes a little bit, like little waves lapping off the beach. A little bit at a time. And you lose all the distracting sensations. The tight muscle, the weak joint, the itch. They become lost in something else. In the vibration. When you're in the reflective state after the medicine, you are vibrating at an incredibly high frequency. You can feel it. Your hands are calm, they're not moving. It doesn't feel like it's a jarring vibration, but if you just breathe, you can feel it inside of yourself. And these sensations that we pretend we don't have. What is it? What does our spleen feel like? What does our gut feel like? What do our lungs feel like? What about our liver? There are sensations in us. You can feel these things because there's nobody else controlling you remotely. There's not somebody with a joystick who's pushing the button to make sure that your thyroid gland operates today. You're doing it. This notion of it's something outside of you. We want to take the power from ourselves. Everything is just involuntary, unconscious, like it's dead. Our whole system is designed to hold us down. They don't want you to know what you are. The whole apple cart gets turned upside down if that happens. Societies revolt, which I don't think is a good thing. I'm not advocating anything of the kind. It's just historically, the people who find this are often executed. That's standard procedure. And that is because of the power control. And the power control, I think, has always been here. I really do like to wonder at these earlier civilizations, and maybe there were smaller groups of people, and the power control never really settled in. There wasn't enough infrastructure for it. Everyone had to look in everyone's eyes. There was that, that communication that again, another thing that we just turn off. If you look in someone's eyes, there's communication happening there. Whether it's a human or an animal, you are communicating. This energy that's flowing, these abilities that we have, it's all right there if you let it happen. Just watch the animals do it. That's how they communicate with each other, with outside of species. They use it. And I don't think the power control can get established if the man seizing it has to look everybody in the eye. I think there's always one or two gentle souls who don't want to get involved, but they're always more powerful than that guy who wants the power control. And they kind of let it happen as long as it doesn't interfere with their life. But if it's standing in front of them, looking them in the eye, that they're not going to tolerate it. There's always going to be this strength and power from the meek. And most of us don't want confrontation. We don't want conflict. We don't want chaos. We want to be left the hell alone. And we'll tolerate enormous wrongs to that end. The power control only survives if everyone's convinced that they're nothing, or they're convinced that they're something else than what they are. They're weak, they're small, or maybe they're valuable, but only to a certain extent. They're valuable if you do this for me, so that the power control can be maintained. And the power control's only objective ever over the course of humanity itself is more power control. That's it. There is no lofty objective to fix a problem or to defeat the enemy. In fact, most of the enemies that you think are being defeated are just fictional. They're made up. You have to have an enemy. It's one of the early steps is we got to identify the bad guys. Because I need the power control. I need everybody on their toes. I need everybody frothing at the mouth with hatred and anger. And then I'll lead you into battle. But I'm going to create the battle. I'm going to fictionalize the whole thing. That's humanity on the larger scale. That's civilization. Certainly for the last 5,000 years. I'm sure before that we don't know what everyone was doing. We just found the foundation of a home buried in the mud in Africa. It's 500,000 years old. When that happens, why don't we all just stop what we're doing? Everybody shut up. Because everything we thought we knew is wrong, and right now we have to face that. Don't gloss over it and go to the next headline because somebody said the wrong word. This is real. This is when science can actually benefit us. These people were smart and skilled, advanced, And they were living at a time we didn't know people were doing anything. Because we don't know anything. And we're not supposed to. The reason that this is the way it is just like everything else that is around us. It's almost like a Hollywood screenwriter setting it all up. That's how perfect it is. So when you finally get to see this place, this power that actually comes from inside you, you can't explain it. There's no words. You get into this, and the words don't work anymore. That's the twist. You can discover the greatest secret of mankind. It's right here. It only takes 20 minutes. But you're not going to be able to talk about it. I know people who know much more than me and are in direct contact with this bliss constantly, and they never say a word. I just see them at the ceremonies. They take their medicine and they go back into the world. There's no need to discuss it. You don't want to turn into a debate where people are telling you there's a better medicine and all this other just interminable bullshit. It's just blah, 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 making noise. That's, unfortunately, where the language has great power. But it's designed that way, that it's all perfect. The humanity has always been perfect. This moment has always been perfect. And look at the creatures that we have found evidence of that have lived among us, before us. Whatever, it's all one thing. There was no humans when there was these giant dinosaurs, but it doesn't matter. You're not something separate from any of it. You're the latest expression of it, and you are an experimental expression because you are capable of something. Well, I don't know what. Maybe the whole experiment was to design the computer chip. Who knows? Nobody knows. Nobody will know. Unless they do, and then they won't be able to talk about it because it won't make sense in the words. I don't believe there is a purpose. It's not that kind of game. It's a song. What is the purpose of the song? If the song has a purpose, it's not a good song. It's something else. That's removing yourself from that urgent notion that something has to be done will enlighten you and show you what this place is, and it will show you that there's nothing to do to it. It doesn't need your intervention. Your clumsy efforts at controlling it, conquering it, why can't we see just the last couple thousand years and apply that? Why can't we see what people were doing? We've been identifying bad guys, listening to the power control, murdering each other mercilessly. Usually the most vulnerable people among us are the ones we target. That's human nature. That's progress. We move into lands where people live and we wipe them out. We build on that land and then we build a wall around it. And we pretend that there's a notion that there's some people who belong to it. Not the people who were there for hundreds of thousands of years building civilizations, advanced trading organizations around the planet. Not those people. Just the ignorant descendant of some dude who had property. They're entitled now. And we don't see it in ourselves, just like we don't see our efforts to fix things. Like the Spanish Inquisition. We're going to save people's souls. There's no holds barred when you go into a population to save souls. Someone says, you know what, if we peel their skin off real slow, they'll be purified and saved. Well, let's do it. We have an obligation. We have a duty. No one's losing sleep over that. Well, this person is rambling and they're depressed and they're difficult to be around. Well, let's shoot a bolt of electricity in their skull and see what happens. Or let's take a knife and shove it up their nose and just stir around the brains a little bit and see if it calms them down. These are what we do. These are things that science has said this is what you should do. And there was committees and boards and decisions made and money spent and invested and teams of very smart people applauding it. We're doing it today, but we don't think what we do today is as bad as what was done yesterday. And in fact, it's worse. It's much, much worse. We look at museums full of old torture devices about what they used to do to people, and we think, God, we're so civilized now. What do you think these supermax prisons are? I was in jail, and I remember one of the realizations I had in there was no insects. It was in the middle of the California desert, cinder block walls, bulletproof glass, whatever the hell they use, I don't know. But there was no life. There was no flies, no bugs, no worms, nothing. And I used to lay there and think, what the hell? How do they do it? And as a nonviolent, moron who just got tied up breaking the rules and not knowing what I was doing, I didn't have any evil intentions. It was mostly drug related. I wasn't making money or anything like that. I was just unhappy and following Burroughs' advice about where the drugs are holding the secrets. So I went after all of them. It's not a good way to live, and you get into trouble, and you end up in a room full of people who, some of them are monsters. Some of them are real monsters. Now you got to navigate this and observe how we handle this part of our society. If you want to see how civilized we are, how are we treating our prisoners? How are we treating our poor? How are we treating our vulnerable? Well, we're rounding them up. We're as bad as it gets. And in that low-level jail, 23 hours a day locked in a little room. And 1 hour to go, not really outside, but there was no ceiling. There was all these walls really narrow like a hallway and an open roof with heavy gauge steel mesh over it. So it looked like a ceiling, but there was actually air flowing through it for 1 hour. Unless something went wrong or they decided that they didn't want to give it to you. And then there was a rumor, somebody, spit in the food that the guards were going to eat, so everyone is tortured for 12 hours and put into these positions that are designed to create pain and suffering. This entire idiotic force of minimum wage people who choose to work in a jail with all their free time already have this knowledge about how to position people to maximize pain and suffering. It's eye-opening. What the hell? How is this the civilized world? Oh, yeah, but back in the day, they used to put you on a wheel and break your back. Well, that only took 20 minutes, and the dude died, and that was it. I don't know which is worse. 60, 70 years in this sanitized isolation where the guard may call you sir or be polite to you with words, but the entire thing is designed to be as intense of suffering as can possibly be created. That's what we have. The sanitization of the suffering to the point that there's no ants. That's what we are. We don't want to see it, but the power control definitely doesn't want you to notice it. We're always different than everyone else. The past, the neighbor, different language, different skin color. We're different than everything. This whole notion that our humanity ends at our skin, that we're separate from this thing around us, is dialed in even more to you're not only separate from nature, you're separate from each other. These are the people that you need to hate. This is all the energy that you can muster. We got to aim it over here. That's power control. That's how societies are run. That's the operator manual. It's very simple. And most people, their thinking doesn't allow for them to consider that they are being maneuvered, manipulated, controlled. You go into the medicine, you have to get through that. There's no option. You can't see what's in there and still think that the world is what you thought. You become deprogrammed. It is a program. We are programmed in many different ways, many different agendas, motivations, including the people that love you the most. They are going to indoctrinate you into a program. That's what they see as protecting you, especially if they know. My parents didn't come from any money or influence at all. They knew the harsh realities of society, and they were obligated to get me on a path that I won't be that guy in that jail cell. I've had to disappoint a lot of people to find this. And there's what used to be crushing guilt is now just a recognition of reality. This is what I am. There's not a lot of good and bad in it. Those valuations, they don't hold up under the scrutiny of the medicine. Because you don't know what's coming. You're never going to know what's coming. So how can you label anything? I mean, what comes after the storm? Well, the rainbow and the sun. Okay, is the storm bad? Yes. Well, then is the rainbow bad? No. Okay, well then what's the correlation? Explain this to me. What comes after intense grief? An awakening. If you let it. You're equipped to grieve, to suffer, to laugh, to love, and to die. You don't need any help. It doesn't matter what order these things come in or who gets a fair share of that. Until you sit down and accept what this is by bending back the light and just letting it happen. You don't even have a position yet. You can't even weigh in. You're completely lost. You're oblivious to what you actually are and what's going on around you. And all of these sensations and emotions that you've had and complain about or take medicine for or whatever, they're not real either. Your feelings are real, but they're so distorted and thwarted and frustrated and tied up into the notion of right and wrong, what you're supposed to do, you should, you could, you would, this whole program. You can't make sense of it. And that's kind of the point. Just give up and say, okay, I don't know anything. Somebody tell me what to do. Tell me what I am. You will have to go through that in the medicine. And there isn't anybody to talk to you. It's just you and God. And that is a moment of empowerment. That's a stand up and live your life moment. That is a stand up and acknowledge that this whole mess that you're in, you built it. Nobody else. You can't get to step one without going through that. And that is a deal breaker for most people. You're going to swallow some pride. You screwed up the whole thing. It's been you the whole time. Wasn't your brother. Wasn't your mom. Wasn't the bully at school. It was you the whole time. You decided how to respond and react. You made choices all day, every day. You still are making decisions all the time to create this world that you're in. So put it all down and just breathe and bend back the light and reflect on what is around you. Let it happen. And these things will bubble up. You'll have an opportunity to untangle these knots through great effort and discomfort, maybe. But what else is there to do? What else? Where else should you put your energy? Besides uncovering what you are, unlocking this ever-flowing river of pleasure and joy and love. There isn't anything else going on. And as you do this, you start to fit in to this place. It's the beauty when you see it. It's overwhelming. Engineered for joy. This whole thing. It's hard to untangle these lines, and it's hard to deprogram, and it can get a little lonely, but not in the way that you think, not in a way that there's ever a chance for regret. Once you get in contact with this part of yourself, you don't need to really make decisions anymore. The compass is set. The destination is set. You're dying. You're going to die. That's the destination. This is what you have to play with. And the resources that just bubble up and emanate from within are blueprints from God. There's no questions. There's no concerns. Not the way that there used to be. It's not all rainbows, and it's not all laughter, and it's not all easy. But you're leaving the confusion. That's the hardest part, is just the not knowing, just because you're being told everything. And there's confusion in this part because you don't know anything, but that's okay. You can trust in yourself, because yourself is this whole thing around you. This is your world. It's entirely up to you what to do with it. And it's not an obligation or a responsibility, because it doesn't need anything to be done. If you choose to do something, that's you using your abilities. That is you in a reflective state, and all of a sudden encountering an attacking enemy. Okay, respond. You don't even have to think about it. You're just as capable as these wild animals that you see fighting for their lives, surviving, escaping, and then 5 minutes later having a snack and taking a nap. That's you. The only thing difference is all of the bullshit that you pile on top of yourself. It's not real. You are strong. You are capable. You are ready for the biggest battle of your life, which is coming. And you don't know from what direction. You don't know when. But it's coming, and it's a doozy. It will require your full attention. And the best way to prepare for that is to selfishly and lazily do nothing. Reflect. Let this world happen and find out what you really are.